Content note: this episode involves real deaths and a long-term missing person case. It also discusses people with intellectual disabilities and mental health conditions. You don't expect the call to come in the middle of the night. You expect to hear a car in the driveway, keys at the door, a familiar step in the hallway, and a voice saying, "Hey, I'm home." Instead, the phone rings. On one end of the line, a mother who hasn't slept. On the other, a deputy trying to sound calm while he uses words that don't feel real yet. Missing persons report. Car not home. Could be nothing. Could be something. The boys were supposed to be back hours ago. They were only going to a basketball game. Just a routine Friday night, a drive up, a drive back, and then bed. 5 young men go out to watch a game. Only one car leaves the parking lot. By morning, that car is just gone. You're listening to Fear Files, Real Cases. Dark Details. Tonight, we're driving into the Sierra Nevada foothills of California to sit with one of the strangest and most heartbreaking disappearances on record, a case where 5 friends went out together. 4 of them were eventually found dead in the mountains. And one of them has never been found at all. This is the story of the Yuba County Five, the boys who never came back. The boys. Before they were a mystery, they were just the boys. In Yuba County, California, in the late 1970s, that's what everyone called them: parents, neighbors, people from the local program where they spent their days. Did you see the boys? The boys were at practice. They were Jack Madruga, 30. A quiet guy, a dependable driver, proud owner of a 1969 Mercury Montego. Ted Weiher, 32. Big, gentle, sometimes a little absent-minded, working a job at a snack bar. Bill Sterling, 29. Deeply religious, liked to go downtown and talk to people about church. Jackie Hoot, 24. The youngest, loved comic books and was often attached at the hip to Ted. And Gary Mathias, 25. A U.S. Army veteran who'd struggled with schizophrenia, now stabilized on medication and living with his parents. All 5 had either mild intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions. They lived at home with their families, who helped manage the practical details of life: rides, medication, schedules. But they also had a real social world of their own. Their favorite thing? Basketball. They played on a team called the Gateway Gators, part of a local program for adults with disabilities. They practiced, they trained, they lived for their games. And in February of 1978, they had something big circled on the calendar: a special Olympic-sponsored tournament. Winners would get a free week in Los Angeles. They were excited enough that some of them laid out their uniforms the night before and asked their parents to make sure they woke up on time. But on Friday, February 24, 1978, the big game wasn't the tournament. It was something else: a road trip to watch a college basketball game and cheer for another team. Just a fun night out. Just a drive. Game night. Late that afternoon, the 5 pile into Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego. The plan: drive from Yuba County up to Chico, California, about an hour away, to watch UC Davis play Chico State. The weather is cold, but the roads are clear. They head north, and sometime that evening, they find their way into the stands. The game is loud, crowded, exactly the kind of event they love. Witnesses see them there, cheering and enjoying themselves. Nothing about the night seems off. After the game, they do something completely normal. They stop at a small convenience store near closing time and buy snacks: chocolate milk, soft drinks, snack pies, a couple of other treats. The clerk remembers them. The wrappers from those exact snacks will later turn up inside the car. At around 10 p.m., they leave. They should head south toward home. Back to Yuba County. Back to the tournament they've been buzzing about for days. They never make it. When the sun comes up, the boys' beds are empty. Their uniforms are still laid out. Parents start calling each other, asking if anyone has heard anything. No one has. By the next day, families go to the police. By the end of the weekend, a simple, worrying question has settled over the community. How far can 5 men in one car disappear without anyone seeing a thing? The wrong road. At first, investigators assume the obvious: they must have crashed somewhere along the main highway between Chico and Yuba County. They start searching that route. Nothing. No broken guardrail. No skid marks. No car down a ravine. Days pass. Then a ranger from Plumas National Forest calls in. He's seen a Mercury Montego sitting in snow on a remote dirt road high up in the Sierra foothills, near a road called the Oroville-Quincy Road. He thought it was just someone who'd gone up to ski or play in the snow. But after hearing about the missing boys, he realizes the make and color match. Deputies go up to check it out. When they reach the Montego, they immediately know something is wrong. The car is about 50 to 70 miles away from the route they should have taken home, and in the opposite direction. The road is rough, narrow, partly snowed in. It's the kind of place locals say you don't drive in winter unless you know exactly what you're doing. Or you have a very good reason. Inside the car, deputies find the wrappers and cartons from the snacks they bought after the game. Programs from the basketball game. A neatly folded map of California in the glove box, unused. There are no signs of panic in the car. No blood, no broken glass, no obvious damage. The keys are missing, but the car itself is fine. The gas tank is about a quarter full. When they test it, the Montego starts right up. It wasn't stuck so badly that it couldn't have been pushed free of the shallow snowbank. It looks like someone just turned it off, locked nothing, took the keys, and walked away into the dark. Deputies step out into the cold and look up at the tall pines, the dark sky, the snow-lined road heading deeper into the forest. 5 men, none dressed for a night hike in the mountains, have vanished from a perfectly workable car. Where did they go? And why? A night in the snow. While search crews begin sweeping the area, another story surfaces, from a man who says he was out there that same night. His name is Joseph Shans, from Sacramento. He tells investigators he had driven up into the mountains on February 24 to check snow conditions near his cabin before a planned family trip. Around 5:30 p.m., his car got stuck in the snow not far from where the Montego would later be found. While he was trying to dig himself out, he began to feel chest pain, later diagnosed as a mild heart attack. According to Shans, as he lay in pain inside his car that night, he heard noises. He says he heard a vehicle, possibly a car and maybe a pickup truck, on the same road, stopping nearby. He hears what sounds like several people talking, maybe a woman, maybe a baby. He calls out for help. The voices go quiet. The lights go off. Later that night, he says, he sees flashlight beams outside his car. Again, he calls for help. Again, the lights go out. No one approaches. When daylight comes and his pain eases, he manages to walk back down the road, passing a Mercury Montego parked in the snow. At the time, he doesn't know it matters. Later, when he hears about the missing Yuba County men, he's sure that's the car he saw. If Shans is right, then at some point during that freezing night, the boys, and possibly someone else, were close enough to hear a man yelling for help. For reasons no one can explain, they did nothing. The search. For several days, search teams on snowcats and on foot comb the mountain. The weather is terrible. Snow and fog swallow the forest. At one point, rescuers themselves almost get lost and have to pull back. Other leads trickle in. A woman who works at a small store in Brownsville, a town about 30 miles from where the car was found, steps forward. She says that on the day after the boys disappeared, 4 young men matching their photos came into her store in a red pickup. 2 waited at the phone booth outside while 2 came in for food, burritos, chocolate milk, soft drinks. The store owner backs her up. The families are torn. On the one hand, it doesn't sound like their boys to just disappear like that, hopping into someone else's truck and heading deeper into the hills instead of home. On the other hand, the way the clerk describes their behavior, what they chose to eat, how they acted, sounds like them. Police can't prove the sighting is real. They can't disprove it either. Meanwhile, the mountain road sits quiet again. Snow piles deeper over the trees, over the search lines, over whatever tracks might once have led away from that Mercury. Eventually, with no new evidence and brutal winter conditions, the official search scales back. The families go home to houses where uniforms hang untouched, and bedroom doors stay open just a little, as if their sons might walk back in. Spring comes. Time passes. And then the snow starts to melt. The trailer. On June 4, 1978, about 4 months after the boys vanished, a group of motorcyclists ride through Plumas National Forest. They head out along a rough road to a little Forest Service trailer, a place rangers use as a shelter during maintenance and emergencies. It's about 19 miles from where the Montego was found. When they get there, something feels wrong immediately. The front window is broken. The door is closed. And from inside the little building comes a heavy, unmistakable smell. They open the door. Inside, they find a body on a bed, covered with layers of sheets and blankets, pulled up over the head. The feet are badly damaged, gangrenous. The face and body are thin, wasted. There's a beard that looks weeks or months old, much fuller than in the last photographs the family took. It's Ted Weiher. When search teams arrive, they start taking stock of the scene. The trailer has a working propane tank nearby with a valve that could have supplied heat. It was never turned on. There's a storage shed outside with boxes of Army-style dehydrated food, enough to feed all 5 men for months. The lock hasn't been cut or opened. Another shed has C-ration cans, some of which have been opened and eaten. Whoever opened them used a P-38 military can opener, a tool either Gary Mathias or Jack Madruga would have known from their service. Ted had lost a huge amount of weight. Medical examiners estimate that, based on his beard growth and the condition of his body, he may have survived for up to 13 weeks after the group first went missing, slowly starving and freezing to death in a building stocked with food, blankets, and nearby heat that he did not or could not fully use. On the floor, they find a pair of shoes that belonged to Gary Mathias. On Ted's body, there are shoes that are too large, almost certainly Gary's old boots. The implication is chilling. At some point, Gary was in that trailer with Ted. Maybe Gary left again. Maybe his feet were too swollen from frostbite, and he swapped shoes so he could walk. Gary himself is nowhere to be found. The sheets that cover Ted so neatly suggest that, when he died, he probably wasn't alone. With his feet in the condition they were in, it would have been almost impossible to tuck himself in like that without help. Someone tried. Someone cared enough to cover him. Then that person, or people, left the trailer, into a forest that still holds more questions. The others. Over the next days, searchers fan out from the trailer, following rough paths through the trees. About 11 miles from the car, along the road that leads back toward it, they find more evidence. On opposite sides of the road, scattered across the ground, are the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. Animals have disturbed the bones, but clothing and dental records confirm who they were. Farther into the woods, not far from the trailer, searchers find a backbone and later a skull. They belong to Jackie Hoot. Pieces of his clothing are nearby. Now the picture is clearer in some ways, and stranger in others. 5 friends leave a game. 1 car ends up on a snowy mountain road. 4 men die in different places along a brutal, icy landscape. The car was fine. The trailer had food and a way to stay warm. And yet, somehow, they all ended up walking into the forest. And not coming back. The only one who's never been found at all is Gary Mathias. Despite searches using dogs, ground teams, and media coverage that spans decades, no trace of Gary has ever been conclusively identified, no body, no bones, no confirmed sightings. Why? So what happened? No one can say for sure. But over the years, a few main theories have emerged. Wrong turn, bad luck, and panic in the cold. One of the simplest explanations is that the boys got turned around driving home, made a wrong turn, and ended up on the mountain road by mistake. Maybe they thought they saw a side road that would cut over to Yuba County. Maybe one of them wanted to go up there for reasons they never shared. Once the car couldn't easily move forward, and they were too scared to try backing down the icy road in the dark, they might have decided to walk for help. But that runs into a problem. If you're lost in the mountains at night, common sense says you either stay with the car until daylight. Or, if you can see lights or a town, you walk downhill, not uphill into deeper snow. Instead, at least some of the group headed up the road, into higher, colder territory, toward the remote Forest Service trailer. Why? Following someone they trusted, or feared. Another theory is that there was someone else with them, maybe the driver of that red pickup seen in Brownsville, maybe someone they met after the game, who convinced them to go up into the hills. The Yuba County Five were vulnerable in specific ways. Some of them had been described by their families as very trusting and eager to please. Ted, for instance, was known to lack basic street sense and might follow instructions literally. One relative said he once had to be dragged out of bed when his bedroom ceiling was on fire because he was worried about missing work the next day. If someone they saw as an authority, or as a friend, told them, "We're going this way," would they have argued? What if there was an argument, or a threat, or a promise of something fun higher up in the snow? We don't know. A mental health crisis. Gary Mathias had a documented history of schizophrenia. He'd struggled during his Army service, especially when he was away from regular treatment and medication. By 1978, he was back on his meds, stable, and living at home. His family and doctors said he was doing well. But what if something happened that night to destabilize him? Some people have speculated that if Gary had a psychotic episode, he might have become confused or paranoid and led the others away from the car, refusing to go back. Some versions of this theory suggest he might have believed there was danger on the road, or that someone was after them. There's no proof of this. It's just one possible explanation for why the group might have left a safe, working vehicle and headed toward nowhere. Foul play. Finally, there's the darkest possibility, that someone else deliberately led, chased, or forced them into the mountains. The strange encounter reported by Joseph Shans, with voices falling silent when he called for help. The Brownsville store sighting with a red truck. The distance between the car, the trailer, and where the bodies were found. All of it has led some investigators to suspect foul play. But there are no bullet wounds, no obvious weapon injuries, no known enemies, and no confession. Just that car. That trailer. Those bodies. And Gary's absence. What we do know. There are a few things we can say with confidence. We know the boys cared deeply about that upcoming tournament. Their families have repeated again and again, they would never have simply taken off and missed it on purpose. They'd been talking about it non-stop. We know they did make it to the Chico game. We know they bought snacks afterward. We know Jax Montego ended up on a lonely mountain road high in the Plumas National Forest, far off any route that made sense. We know Ted was alive and slowly dying in that trailer for weeks, maybe months, with food and potential warmth just out of practical reach, and with Gary's shoes on his feet. We know Jack, Bill, and Jackie died outside, in the winter woods, trying to walk through deep snow and rough terrain. We know their families have spent decades replaying every detail, wondering whether some small decision, a different route, a different call, a different piece of advice, would have changed anything. And we know that somewhere, out there in the mountains or somewhere else entirely, the answer to what really happened to the fifth man, Gary Mathias, is still missing. If you know something. The case of the Yuba County Five remains open. From time to time, it surfaces in documentaries, books, and news features, interviews with family members who have grown older while their questions stay the same. If you have any credible information about this case, especially about the whereabouts of Gary Mathias, or anything that happened in the Plumas National Forest area around February 24 to 25, 1978, contact Yuba County Sheriff's Office or Plumas County Law Enforcement. Do not attempt to investigate on your own in dangerous terrain or contact surviving relatives directly. For families left behind in cold cases like this, even a single verified detail can matter. Most of us will never have to imagine what it's like to set out a uniform for a game that never happens. To drive past the same stretch of mountains for years, wondering what they're hiding. Or to celebrate a birthday with one more empty seat at the table and no answers about where your child went. For the families of the Yuba County Five, that's the reality they live with. 5 boys. 1 car. 4 bodies. 1 name still missing in the forest. You've been listening to Fear Files, Real Cases. Dark Details. Until next time. Keep your lights on, double check your route home, and remember. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't ghosts in the dark. They're the nights when people you know and love just don't come back.